Hey everybody, just wanted to touch base with a few updates about what's going on within the Heartway community during this time of change and uncertainty. For starters, beginning this Sunday and every other Sunday until we're able to gather again, we are going to be providing for you an on-demand Heartway experience. And so we're going to sing a few songs together. We're going to practice centering prayer. We're going to practice our moment of gratitude. I'm going to share a short teaching. And we're also going to make some really important announcements about how we are planning to facilitate community online while we're all stuck at home. And we've got some really creative ideas planned to bring everybody together during this time. So make sure you tune in Sunday on our YouTube channel. The link will be available on all of our different social media platforms, and you can also find that on-demand experience at heartwaychurch.com. You know, I've been reflecting a lot about how important it is to make room for the full range of emotions that come with experiencing the kind of crisis that we're in. I've heard a lot of people within the religious community telling others not to fear, not to be anxious, not to panic. And I don't know about you, but for me, those emotions aren't switches that I can just flip on and off at will. In fact, the more I try and control my emotions or avoid my emotions or ignore my emotions, the more my emotions begin to take over, and the more that affects my day-to-day state of being. So there has to be a better way, a healthier way to relate to our feelings when we're experiencing turmoil within ourselves. You know, in the book of Psalms, there's a word that's used 71 times. It's the word Selah. It literally means to pause or to be silent. And oftentimes the psalmist uses this word after the psalmist has vented all of their emotion to God. So you have all this anger, all this fear, all this frustration. They let it all out, and then that expression of emotion is followed by a Selah. Pause. Be still. Be silent. This is called making space. When we can make space for our emotions and allow our emotions to be what they are without judging them, over time, those emotions begin to settle and subside on their own. So the truth is, you don't have to try really hard to let go of fear. Just make space for it. And by making space for it, eventually the fear will let go of you. And so by cultivating a sense of inner stillness and silence, by quieting the chatter of your mind, in the Eastern Orthodox tradition, they call it dropping your mind into your heart. By doing this, what you come to recognize is that it is very possible to experience emotion without becoming emotion. And so anytime that you notice that fear has arisen within you, or stress has arisen within you, allow it. Make space for it. Let it be what it is. Accept it. Because all of those emotional states are a sign and a signal to you that in that moment, your attention has drifted from the presence of God to the compulsion of your preconditioned thinking. In that moment, your attention has drifted from the security of the present moment to the uncertainty of the future. You know, there's a story about a monk who had a group of disciples, and he told them to go to a lake to get him some water because he was thirsty. And so they went, and when they arrived at the lake, it was a very shallow lake, and there was a horse dragging a cart over the lake, and all of the mud at the bottom of the lake started getting stirred up so that the water became muddy and dirty, and nobody could drink from it. So they returned to their teacher and they said, "Sir, we couldn't get water for you. The water is muddy." And he said, "No problem, just go back in 30 minutes. They go back in 30 minutes, the water's still muddy. And so they go back to their teacher and he says, "No problem, go back in 30 minutes. They go back after another 30 minutes. Finally, this time, the mud settled down, the water was clear. So they fill up their bucket, they bring it to the teacher, and he says, "Do you see what you did to make the water clear up?" And they said, "Yeah, we did nothing." And he said, exactly. You just let it be. And by letting it be, the mud settled on its own and the water became clear. That's exactly how the mind works. Next time your mind is disturbed by thoughts, next time you feel overwhelmed by your mental activity, let it be. Make space for it. And what you will notice is without any effort on your part, by simply receiving grace, your thoughts begin to settle, your emotions begin to subside, and as your mind drops into your heart, you begin to experience an openness that brings a sense of peace and calm even when everything around you is going crazy. This is why developing spiritual practices and habits and rhythms are so important. This is a way of life. It's a way of being in the world. And who we are doesn't change just because everything outside of us is going crazy. If you are a lover of God, if you are a spiritual practitioner, then this is just a part of you. And having those habits, having those rhythms, help to provide an anchor for your soul that keeps you calm during crisis, that allows you to be at peace in the middle of every storm in the same way that Jesus was. You see, because now it's the coronavirus. And this is a very serious thing for the world. I know that. I hope you know that. But the reality is, if it's not this, it's just going to be something else. Life is always changing. Nothing ever stays the same. There are good times and there are bad times. All of us experience loss. We lose loved ones. We lose our money. We lose our health. We lose our jobs. We lose our sanity sometimes. Look around the world. There are natural disasters. There's famine. There's injustices and abuses and oppression. So much is wrong with the world. Everything is always changing. And so the only thing that is constant, the only thing that is stable, the only thing that can provide a firm foundation for your life is the presence of God within your soul, the experience of God's love within the heart. That's the only thing we ever have to hold on to, because everything else is always shifting, always moving. This is why David in Psalm 27 says, the one thing that I seek and desire is to live in the presence of God and to gaze at the beauty of God, which, by the way, is not just something that we do during the good times, it's also something we do during the bad times. If as Christians we believe that God was most fully revealed on a cross, that means that the beauty of God can be found even in the midst of the worst of human suffering. What a reminder. What a gift that is. Do we have the eyes to see? There's a story in the New Testament gospel about Jesus going into the house of Mary and Martha, two sisters. And Martha was really busy trying to accommodate Jesus and be hospitable, and she was preparing things. But Mary was just sitting at Jesus' feet the whole time that he was there. And Martha, of course, got a little agitated and wanted to tell Jesus, hey, don't you notice that my sister isn't helping me out? Aren't you going to tell her something? And Jesus responded to Martha by saying, oh, you don't get it. You're caught up in doing a bunch of different things, but there's only really one thing that's necessary, and she has found that good portion. You see, the only thing that is necessary for us now is for us to be still in the presence of God. The only thing that is necessary for us now is for us to listen to the voice of God in the midst of our chaos. That's always the only thing there ever is to do. What else is there for us to do than to deepen our spiritual life? What else in life could be more important to us than remaining connected to God, keeping our heart open, staying in a state of love? It's the only thing that matters, and it's the only thing that can help keep you at peace when everything in the world seems to be lost in chaos. The way that I love in the New Testament that this is worded is in the book of 1 Thessalonians, when St. Paul says, "Pray without ceasing and give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God for you in Christ." You want to know what God's will is for you in the midst of this entire mess? And I hope you do, because God's will is where your joy is. God's will is where your peace is. God's will is where your serenity and rest is found. God's will for you is prayer and gratitude, whatever that looks like. Prayer and gratitude. God's will for you is that you would maintain a quiet spirit and a thankful heart. That's all. Because without that, our mind will have a tendency to go all the way into the future that does not exist, create a bunch of problems, create a bunch of what-if scenarios, all the while the present moment just passes us by. And by the way, the present moment is where the grace is. The present moment is where God is. The present moment is where your peace is to be found. And so I hope that you would take the time to center yourself. And if you haven't developed spiritual rhythms and practices and habits, what better time to begin than now? And over the course of the next few weeks, we're going to be offering a lot of tips and a lot of informative workshop sessions that can help you to cultivate this inner life with God and really establish yourself with practices and habits that can bring life to your soul. I love you. I hope you have an incredible rest of the week. We'll catch you on Sunday.